Explain or define the following. Speech community. A speech community is a group of people who share rules for conducting and interpreting at least one variety of a language or dialect. Linguistic borrowing. In linguistics, borrowing, also known as lexical borrowing, is the process by which a word from one language is adapted for use in another. Language contact. Language contact is the social and linguistic phenomenon by which speakers of different languages or different dialects of the same language interact with one another, leading to a transfer of linguistic features. Next is language variations. Variations is a characteristic of language. There is more than one way of saying the same thing. Speakers may vary pronunciation, word choice, or morphology and syntax. Language registers. The language register, also called linguistic register and speech register, describes the way a person speaks in relation to their audience. A speaker modifies their language register to signal levels of formality according to their relationship and intended purpose of speech. Language shift. Language shift, the process whereby an individual or speech community moves from habitually one language to using another, often culturally dominant language, an instant of this. Language death. In linguistics, language death occurs when a language loses its last native speaker. By extension, language extension is when the language is no longer known, including by second language speakers. Last is social linguistics. Social linguistics is the study of the connections between language and society and the way people use language in different social situations. Explain the relationship of the following. Language and gender. Gender, as opposed to sex, is a social construct and it is constructed by various cultural practices or societal customs. Language is a communicative practice which influences and is influenced by cultures. The linguistic competence of a speaker is their knowledge, ability to produce or recognize meaning. However, linguistic competence is not enough to make sense. One needs the knowledge of social conventions of a particular culture to make meaning. Since language is highly dependent on the culture around it, it is in many senses a performative act as well. The genders are thus affected by the language they speak. B. Language and social class or ethnicity. Language and social class or ethnicity. Research shows that there is a close connection between social class and language use choices. So that means that people of a specific social class actually develop a variations of their language that indicates that they belong to that social class. This is called socialect, which means a distinct variations of a language that is used by members of a specific social class. C. Language and power or politeness. Most linguists now agree that the relationship between language and power is a mutual relationship. Powerful institutions and individuals use language as both a means to construct their power and as a way to maintain it. Explain the following three sub-varieties of Philippine English. First, Yaya English. Yaya English, a qualification that Lourdes Bautista or Maria Lourdes Bautista makes, is that the features of Yaya English are actually typical of standard Philippine English. The difference being that the errors in standard Philippine English are sporadic and infrequent. Bautista identifies the deeper problem of Yaya English as the fact that its error arises from ignorance of rules. It is also considered as sparse, wherein the Yaya is forced to use English because her young charges are usually from affluent families that speak English. B. Bar Girl English. Bautista then describes wherein it has the same characteristics of the Yaya English with the additions of the use of you know and non-Filipino idiomatic expressions. The bar girls whose English Bautista describes is exactly the bar girls who are conscripted to as service of the servicemen. These burghers are with little or no education, taken from their poor families, often with a promise of education. Their exposure to English is minimal. C. Collegiala English. Collegiala English, Bautista observes that what she calls the base language is English, but that the syntax is characteristically Tagalog, predicate plus subject. Other characteristics of Collegiala English are frequent insertion of common Tagalog function words, particles, conjunctions, etc., and the use of Tagalog content words and Tagalog exclamatives. The collegiala belongs to the higher socio-economic class associated with educated English.